What exactly is Texas getting with Cam Coleman? The host of Locked On Auburn joins me to talk about why Longhorn fans should be so excited with this new pickup. That's coming up on Locked On Longhorns. Intro.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. You are locked on to the Texas Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, BK, Brad Kellner, Texas grad, Austin local, and longtime sports radio host here in the Lone Star State. Thank you, everydayers, for making Locked On Longhorns your first listen every single day. We're, of course, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, so please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving a comment. So thank y'all sincerely for that. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Yesterday, I had the chance to chop it up with Zac Blackerby, the host of Locked On Auburn. We spent nearly 12 minutes talking about Cam Coleman and everything that he is bringing to Austin, Texas, and it has me even more excited about this portal pickup. So without further ado, my conversation with Zac Blackerby. Zac, thanks so much for the time, man. How are you?
Good. Yeah, Cam Coleman no longer an Auburn Tiger. Feels weird. Feels weird being on this side of talking about Cam Coleman.
Yeah, I guess you're doing okay, but maybe not as good as Texas fans are doing today. You know, so many questions to ask, so much to dive into about the Longhorns' newest wide receiver. But if you had to explain Cam Coleman's game to a Texas fan who's maybe never watched him, right? Texas and Auburn have not played the last couple of years. So a Longhorn fan who's kind of new to Cam Coleman, knows he's good, but doesn't really know what he's all about. How would you describe his game?
Elite, generational, special. Some of the catches he made last season, I mean, especially in the red zone, if you gave that to me with no context, and I was just seeing the raw catching of the football, I bet this is AI. Like the ball goes through the defender. How is he catching it? So I mean, he's spectacular. He's spectacular. Is he perfect? No, but he has the chance to be. I mean, he has the chance to be one of the best receivers in the country, obviously one of the best receivers in the NFL draft this upcoming year. And I mean, if he does what it takes, I mean, he could be one of the more gifted receivers to play the game. It's just, can he take that next step?
Wow. So why did he decide to leave Auburn? Is it as simple as coaching change, not winning enough games his first 2 years there? Or was there more to the story?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the narrative's kind of spun off in a few different directions, but here's my take and my understanding of what's gone on. So originally reports were his agents wanted a ton of money. Yeah, okay, rightfully so. And there were all these reports that Cam Coleman doesn't want to leave, but it's the agent doing this. Like, okay, but at some point, if that were true, he would step up and say like, hey, I kind of want to be here. As we get farther and farther into this process, people that I've talked to and then other folks have reported similar things, that Cam Coleman and this staff, like they really didn't interact that much. All the conversations were through the agent. There's a lot of he said, she said on that kind of stuff in regards to, the agents want everything to be 100% guaranteed. And, then, the narrative around that is, oh, well, the agent just wants to do whatever it is for them to get paid the most. Whatever. I think when it comes down to it, I think Cam Coleman wanted to leave, and so he did leave. And then I also think money was an important part of this, rightfully so, whether that's him speaking, his agent speaking, it doesn't matter. Look, On3 had him as the number one player in the transfer portal for a reason. That demands cachet, it demands attention, and it demands, in today's age, NIL. And so you look at where he went. He visited Texas. You guys don't play around. He visited Texas A&M. That oil money don't play. He visited Texas Tech. Yeah, we all know they rebuilt their roster and it kind of worked. And then, of course, Alabama. So 4 schools that aren't afraid to pay. It's worked so far. And I also think, Cam Coleman, he hasn't really had consistent quarterback play at Auburn. And I'm sure he was looking at all of those suitors, and it's like, okay, new situation at Tech, interesting situation in Alabama, A&M. There's differing opinions on a Marcel Reed. Arch Manning, it's pretty clear. Arch Manning's entering the season as one of the best quarterbacks in college football. So I think there were a lot of things at play. And a lot of things about this I don't think we'll ever fully know, just because Cam Coleman did seemingly distance himself from the Auburn program as soon as he could.
Yeah, Zach, you mentioned the mediocre quarterback play at Auburn the last couple of years. Maybe this is a partial answer to the question I'm about to ask. Look, Cam Coleman's numbers weren't bad. I mean, 1,300 plus yards, 13 touchdowns in 2 years in the SEC, and you guys play a loaded SEC schedule every year.
Sure.
That's pretty good, but maybe not eye-popping, Biletnikoff-style numbers. I mean, everyone's talking about Cam Coleman as like a surefire top half of a first-round pick in 2027. Mm-hmm. Do you think maybe the lack of eye-popping numbers is the quarterback play? Is it maybe Auburn didn't use him as much as they should? What was sort of the explanation for why he didn't quite reach Jeremiah Smith levels, to use an example, during his first
I mean, it was Hugh Freeze, his scheme, and then he gets fired. Derek Nix, Auburn's OC last year, now a wide receivers coach at Alabama, which made Alabama interesting in the Cam Coleman sweepstakes. Once they took over, the production soared. And you could tell early on they were trying to get it to these guys. Eric Singleton was on the other side of them. Malcolm Simmons at times throughout the season. You could tell they were trying to get it to them. There was just no creativity. There was no spark. There was no juice in that Auburn offense until Hugh Freeze was gone. They really opened up the playbook, and Cam Coleman benefited from it. I mean, everybody benefited from it. So I think that was part of it. And then, even when it was like, whoever was at quarterback, they just never really got it going until Ashton Daniels kind of got things going once again after Hugh Freeze was fired.
Yeah. Yeah. You used words like elite and generational to talk about Cam Coleman a little bit earlier. And maybe it's impossible to pinpoint just one, so I'll ask a plural question. What are the biggest strengths of Cam Coleman's game?
Catch radius is it. If you throw it anywhere around him, he's got a chance to come down with it. As far as being able to locate the football and catch radius, he's fast, especially for his size. And some of his routes I think are more crisp than others, but catch radius and how dangerous he is in the red zone, to me, that is what makes him special. And I mean, on the other side of this, and this is what Auburn fans are holding on to, right? Where you look at the weaknesses that Cam Coleman had, he would drop the occasional wide open slant. Auburn's driving to keep the Iron Bowl alive after a dramatic second half comeback. He fumbles on, what was be a crucial drive for the Auburn Tigers. And that was kind of his last moment as an Auburn Tiger, which is unfortunate, which stinks that he went out that way here, but it is what it is. So, ball security and I guess like catch consistency. But man, when he's covered and there's a guy on him, it seems like he catches it every time.
Yeah. After the catch, I mean, it seems like from everything I've read and everything I've watched, Cam Coleman can be a difference maker too. How is he once he does secure the football?
Yeah, Auburn's offense didn't really allow for a lot of that with their outside guys. So I would assume just with his speed and, the strides that he makes and all that, I would assume that would be there. But we didn't see a ton of wiggle with him with the ball, trying to make guys miss. We didn't see a ton of that, but I'm sure that is there.
Yeah. When we're talking about wide receivers, high school, college, NFL, those guys are known to have some personality. Some people would use the term diva to describe them. Obviously, Cam Coleman, 5-star, top 5 recruit in America coming out of high school. People have been lauding his praises for a long time. Sometimes with that type of success and, pomp and circumstance, there can be some personality issues, any sort of diva-ness, obviously a lot of adversity at Auburn the last couple of years. Was there any sort of personality things that maybe Texas fans are going to have to keep an eye on with Cam Coleman?
I don't think so. I think Cam Coleman was always pretty good about being a team first guy. I think that's why some of this offseason and, him entering the portal, I think surprised so many people. And that might've been why it hurt a little bit more when he did versus other guys, because you didn't really see any of that. Cam Coleman seemed like he loved Auburn, seemed like he loved being here. And something that I said, and a lot of the guests on my show said, Cam Coleman just needed an excuse to stay at Auburn. That's what we felt. Clearly that wasn't the case. Auburn was very competitive with what they offered him from an NIL standpoint. So clearly he wanted something else. He wanted more, whether it was, the ability to compete for a championship or whatever. I don't think it was money. I think whatever Texas is paying him, I think Auburn could have came closer, matched it when it really came down to it. I don't think the conversations really ever got that deep, which is unfortunate. So, I think the to use your word, diva-ness, I don't think that's really there for Cam Coleman. I think that's what made this a little bit surprising.
Yeah, two more quick ones here for you, Zach, and appreciate your time. Surefire first-round pick in 2027. I mean, we're talking about a one-and-done guy, and then he's off to the NFL.
Yeah, I would be shocked. You'd have to think that something bad happened if that were the case. He has every trait that the NFL is looking for, 100%. And it's just kind of wild that him and Jeremiah Smith are going to come out at the same time. That's going to be, I think they're going to compare it to the receiving core from several years ago when like Julio Jones and AJ Green came out at the same time. It was just like, goodness gracious, you can't make a wrong decision here. I think it might be similar to that.
There you go. I love it. And then last but not least, one misconception that people might have about Cam Coleman and his game as he takes his talents to Austin for 2026.
Goodness. I think maybe like there's room to improve in the 20s if I want to nitpick here, just because like it did seem like his oh wow moments came when it involved the red zone and the end zone. So like maybe that's a misconception. This is just a guy who has been a star ever since he stepped up. I think y'all will appreciate this. So, he's an early enrollee, right? As pretty much every kid is now, especially, the higher ranked guys. So he's supposed to be a senior in high school, but his first A-Day, which is Auburn's scrimmage, their spring game, he takes over, right? I think he has like 3 touchdowns and I was like, this is Auburn fans' first time seeing Cam Coleman. And it's just like, he's electric. He's dynamic. Every time he touches the football, he's scoring. It was awesome. What a moment he was.
Wow.
And so we go out and, we listen to Hugh Freeze's presser. And then one of the Auburn SIDs come out. It's like, hey, y'all get Cam Coleman first. You got 5 minutes. We got to get him to prom. and then, so we all talked to Cam for a minute and then he goes, and then, an hour later, he's posting prom pictures on his Instagram while like PFF and ESPN, all these national college football accounts are like posting his highlights. I'm like, can you imagine? Can you imagine being this guy who's at his prom and all these national sports accounts are tweeting about how incredible you were like 2 hours prior to that? That's Cam Coleman. Like he is a star. He is an absolute star. And I think just with, everything that goes on with, goes along with playing at Texas and being associated with Arch Manning, I think the sky is going to be the limit for him.
Wow. What a great story. And that's the opposite of diva-ness right there. Being willing to participate in the spring game and then going back to high school for prom that same night. That is big time. And it's probably a fun time for Cam Coleman. No doubt. Zach, this was a lot of fun, man. Thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time and your insight.
Hey, thanks, guys.
More scatter shooting thoughts on Cam Coleman. Yes, he'll be great, but what he brings to some other guys on the Texas offense, maybe even greater. It's coming up next on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Wayfair. The new year is here, and it's a perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home in 2026, you might as well love how it looks and feels. That's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or upgrading your work from home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for your style and your budget. And they really do have everything for every single budget. Shopping is so easy. Delivery is smooth. Everything arrives exactly as expected and on time. It honestly makes getting back into a routine in the new year so much more manageable. So get organized, get refreshed, and get back on track this year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. All right, welcome back to Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. Friendly reminder about the Locked On Everydayer Club, another great way to support what we're building here on Locked On Longhorns, while also giving you access to a number of exclusive perks. If you join the Everydayer Club, you're going to get this show and every Locked On show completely ad-free with no interruptions. Plus, members-only Discord access and so much more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonlonghorns.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. You just heard what the host of Locked On Auburn had to say about Cam Coleman. The Longhorns are getting a game changer on the outside. There's no doubt about that. And with Arch Manning throwing him the rock, it feels like the sky is the limit for what he can do in 2026. Obviously, Arch Manning is going to benefit from having Cam Coleman as his number one target. But you know who else is going to benefit? Ryan Wingo. I've anointed Ryan Wingo the most frustrating player in Texas football history. A bit hyperbolic, yeah, perhaps, but out of line? I don't think so. And while that may sound incredibly harsh or critical or mean or all of the above, it's a title mired in praise because I don't get frustrated by bad players because I know they're bad. I don't expect much from them. Ryan Wingo frustrates me because he's so good. We know it. We've seen it. He is an all-world talent, super highly touted recruit, made a big impact as a true freshman in 2024, and we saw it again on full display in 2025. And even in a slightly disappointing 25 season, Ryan Wingo was named second-team All-SEC, and he led a very good Texas team in all three major receiving categories. You don't do that unless you're really good. But, and it's a big but, the drops, and some inconsistent route running and a couple of near no-show performances mixed in, those things prevented Wingo from being first-team All-SEC. And honestly, a guy who could have been in the conversation for All-America teams as well. I truly believe Ryan Wingo has a chance to be one of the best wide receivers in the game. And now that he doesn't have to be Texas's number one, he doesn't have to go up against number one cornerbacks. The opposing defensive coordinator isn't going to be staying up all night trying to game plan to stop him. Now that he doesn't have to deal with all of that added pressure and responsibility of being the top pass-catching threat on an offense, his life should become so much easier in 2026. You know, DeAndre Moore, Parker Livingston, Emmett Mosley, those guys all dealt with injuries at time this past season, which didn't help Ryan Wingo. And of course, those guys weren't as good as Cam Coleman. None of them are Cam Coleman. You know, Wingo had 54 catches, 834 yards, and 7 touchdowns this past season. Even though he's getting, quote unquote, demoted, if you will, on the depth chart, there's a chance all three of those numbers go up. And he could be, I don't know if I want this to happen because I'd love Ryan Wingo to be a key contributor on this offense for multiple seasons, but he could be headed to the league if he has a great season. Next year is year 3 for him. He puts it all together. He could be off to the National Football League. So I think Ryan Wingo, his life, again, is just going to be made so much easier by the fact that a guy like Cam Coleman is going to be on the same field at the same time. That guy is going to attract so much attention that it should open up things for Ryan Wingo to have even a more sensational year in 2026. Obviously, he has to clean up the drops. Got to catch the football so he could continue to be a reliable force for Texas. But the Longhorns, I mean, Ryan Wingo had so many more targets than any other wideout for this team in 2025. That's not just going to go away because Cam Coleman's here. He is still going to be a focal point and a guy that Steve Sarkisian and Arch Manning want to give the ball to. And hey, why stop at Ryan Wingo when it comes to guys who are going to benefit from Cam Coleman being around? How about Emmett Mosley V? He's now the Horns' number 3 wideout. Are you kidding me? Let's talk about favorable matchups. I mean, I really liked what I saw from Emmett Mosley during his first season on the 40. Unfortunately, he suffered that leg injury late in fall camp, actually pretty early in fall camp, that caused him to miss the majority of fall camp and also the first month of the season. You know, considering that, coupled with the fact that he didn't transfer until after the spring, I thought Emmett Mosley developed into a really solid piece for the Texas passing game and a guy that I think a lot of Texas fans feel like they can depend on going into next year. Now, fully healthy, going into a full offseason, Ryan Wingo and Cam Coleman next to him, and a better Arch Manning at quarterback, obviously going into his second season as a starter. There's another guy right there whose numbers could, and honestly probably should, go up in 2026. I like Mosley's game a lot. Big reason why Texas went out and got him after his true freshman season at Stanford. Made some things happen in a relatively limited role in 2025. His role is going to expand, and I think the stats will as well. And then the younger guys too. I don't know how much Khalil Lockett we're going to see. I don't know how much Dalen McCutcheon we're going to see. The true freshman, Jermaine Bishop, we'll talk about him more later. I'm not sure how much those guys are going to play because Sark and Chris Jackson typically don't rotate their receivers a ton, but getting to sit back and watch and learn from those dudes, not a bad thing for them, and really not a bad thing for Texas. So the impact of Cam Coleman is going to be felt way beyond Cam Coleman. Feels like this passing game should be able to reach new heights because of what he's going to do, but also what he's going to allow so many others to do on this Texas offense. What say you? Would love to get your thoughts on all of that. All right, one segment to go on a Tuesday edition of the show. Transfers have been dominating our conversation lately, and rightfully so, but the early enrollees for the Texas class of 2026 arrived on campus this past weekend. A quick refresher on some of the top names to know. We'll get to that next on Locked On Longhorns. But first, a word for our friends at Game Time. There is nothing like college football season, the tailgates, packed stadiums, and being right there in the middle of it all. One more game to go, the national championship game next Monday. If you want to be there, our friends at Game Time have you covered. If you don't want to be there, guess what? Texas basketball tickets, you want to get in on those, our friends at Game Time have you covered. It used to be difficult and frustrating to buy tickets. Long lines, logins, prices randomly jumping at checkout. You don't have to worry about that with Game Time. Game Time gives the advantage back to the fans. This is the easiest way to unlock college football and college basketball tickets and experiences in just a few taps. Plus, you get a view from your seat before buying, so you know exactly what you are going to get. And again, no hidden fees. Prices up front, nothing random, so the whole process is stress-free. So take the guesswork out of buying your sports tickets with our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONCollege. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. All right, final segment, Tuesday edition, Locked On Longhorns, your team every day. It's safe to say that the Texas Longhorns have been dominating transfer recruiting as of late, but let's not forget about high school recruiting, the backbone and lifeblood of a college football program. And speaking of high school recruiting, the Longhorns recently moved in its 8th-ranked 2026 recruiting class. The spring semester getting underway at UT this week. So those guys all got to campus this past weekend and have started their school. And obviously winter workouts will be going here before you know it. All but one of the 23 signees are on campus. Nicholas Robertson, the offensive lineman, the only one set to join the program in the summer. There is a lot to like about the 2026 class. I know it's not the number one class like the 2025 one was, but still a lot of talented players and a few names that Texas fans need to know. With everything Texas has done in the portal, they're not going to be relying a ton on true freshmen to play significant roles in their first seasons, but some of these guys are just too good to leave on the sidelines, including a player that we briefly mentioned in segment 2, Jermaine Bishop Jr., the 5-star athlete from Willis, Texas, who put up video game numbers during his high school career. And not just video game. We're talking like rookie mode with all of the sliders turned all the way up in favor of you video game mode. I know we talked about this when it happened, but it's worth talking about again. Bishop had a playoff game in December where he had 15 catches for 328 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. And 7 carries for 19 yards and a touchdown. And he was 2 of 3 throwing the football for 42 yards. And he had a 39-yard punt return. And he had a game-sealing interception on a Hail Mary attempt on the final play of the game. Yeah, one game The impressive stats for a half season. He did that on one Friday. Just insane. He played both ways, really played all three ways during his high school career. And by the way, it wasn't just that one game. We're talking about a guy who had more than 5,000 receiving yards and 50 touchdowns in his high school career to go along with 17 interceptions on defense. A do-it-all. And he has the ability to do all of those things in college too. I do think wide receiver is his best position and the one that he's most likely to play when he gets to Texas. The question for Jermaine Bishop is, will Sark be willing to rotate his wide receivers a little bit more in 2026? To this point, it's been very difficult for true freshman wideouts to get some time. Xavier Worthy was able to do it. Ryan Wingo was able to do it. Those have kind of been the only two freshman wideouts to get a ton of run. I think Bishop is on that level in terms of talent and skill set. I really do. My question is, with Cam Coleman and Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley and Khalil Lockett and Dalen McCutcheon, will Jermaine Bishop get his opportunities to show it? I hope so, because, again, I think he's too good to leave on the sideline. At minimum, he needs to be playing on special teams. He's just too good. Another name to know, a guy you probably already do know, so maybe this is more of a refresher, Tyler Atkinson. The 5-star linebacker from Georgia, the highest rated defensive player in the Horns 2026 class, and maybe the biggest recruiting win for Texas in the entire cycle, going into Dogs territory and taking an absolute dog. Now, the Longhorns are losing a lot at linebacker. And while they've added Rasheem Biles and Justin Cryer in the portal, Texas is still a bit short on bodies there. T'Anthony Smith, Biles, Cryer, not a ton of other proven commodities in that room. So a real legitimate opportunity for Tyler Atkinson to be on the 2 deep from the moment he arrives on campus, and that may be the expectation. If Brad Spence switches back to off-ball linebacker, then maybe add him to the list as well. But either way, like Jermaine Bishop Jr., I think Tyler Atkinson is just too good to not see the field. And I'm not talking about a little bit. I'm talking about a lot in his first year. He was the most ready to play linebacker in the entire 2026 class. And I think he's going to be counted on pretty much from the moment he steps on a practice field. He also can be utilized in all special teams as well. It will be interesting. Will Muschamp has obviously been a defensive coordinator here before, but it's been a while. So I kind of knew what to expect from PK. Not entirely sure what to expect from Coach Boom in part 2 of his Texas tenure. Will he put Tyler Atkinson on the field as a true freshman in actual big defensive moments? Time will tell. Atkinson is a hard worker. He's not, I'm at Texas, I got my NIL money, I can take my foot off the gas. No, this guy has always been about the grind, and he should be ready when his number is called upon in year 1. So I am super excited about him. So just a couple of names. There's a few more that we could talk about, but those are the two. Again, a couple of 5-stars, so it makes sense that we're talking about them. But one guy on offense and one guy on defense who I do think will make massive impacts in their true freshman campaigns on the 40 acres. What say you? Who did I miss? Who do you want to see? And who do you think we'll see a lot of this fall? All right, that'll do it for today's episode. If you made it this far, number 1, God bless you. Number 2, please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment, rate 5 stars, all of those great things. Can't thank you all enough for your continued support of Locked On Longhorns. Plenty more transfer portal conversation and maybe some more breakdown on some of these early enrollees coming your way in the future. But that will do it for today's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, horns up, mics off. We'll see y'all soon. This is Locked On Longhorns.